ladies and gentlemen. It is Tuesday, January 26th. It's 9 a.m. We just got some drill results a couple of hours ago from Pucara Gold, one of the companies on the HRA list. As you are undoubtedly already aware, the market is not happy about those drill results, and granted, they were definitely not a great set of holes by any reasonable description. I did want to get on with management here because I had a chance for a brief talk with them, and they are more optimistic than the way the stock's trading might lead you to believe. And what I want to do is I'm going to get Steve Zucker, the CEO, to walk us through the results and maybe what the implications are. But equally important, Ken Ballowig, the VP Exploration, is going to walk us through, why he thinks the results were what they were, why he likes the targets they've yet to drill, and the work that they'll be getting onto in the field at Lourdes, but also at a couple of their other marquee projects once the rains ease up in late March, early April in Peru. If you want to take it away, Steve, and kind of give us an overview to what you put out this morning.
Okay, thank you. Next slide. I'm Steve Zucker, the CEO of Pucara, and move forward, Patrick. Yeah, talking about the results of our 25 drill hole program that was completed right before Christmas, and the results. We've been testing some of that and found that some of the targets didn't have gold. It's a pretty big system, multiple systems, in fact, and as evidenced by all the diatremes that we've mapped out there. And so, access was part of it. We had two strong months to get in our 4,000 meters, and we were pretty happy with that. We weren't able to get any lab results during that time, but that's exploration. And so we were moving from Haopata there in the western part of the property to the east, and then to the south to some of the other targets where we started to get some joy. We learned about what the stratigraphy is here of the volcanics. We see Haopata as part of a technical success. Eric,
Yeah.
Geophysics pointed to a lot of silicification, which we expected to host gold because we were seeing it host gold in other parts of the property and adjacent mines. So we were pretty excited about it, but the assays are what we need to wait for. So we're going to continue to test some of the system, and plus we've got other things in our back pocket. Pakashka is another project in Kayla and Pukapaca. So we're not a one-trick pony, and we're advancing all those as we speak, and have been before we were public.
And for clarity, the work that you've got planned in terms of phase 2 drilling at Lourdes and continued targeting, and then phase 1 drilling at Pakashka, the company's fully financed for all of that.
Yeah. We spent, roughly $2 million on this drill campaign. So we're down to about $5.5 million now. And so that fully would fund, phase 2 at Lourdes and phase 1 at Pakashka, and allow us to do a few other things as well. So, yeah.
And the timelines for this are essentially determined by the rainy season, which goes for a couple more months.
Yeah, that's the biggest factor in front of us right now. Rainy season, Christmas to Easter. So sometime in April is what we expect. We'll be able to get access, and it just gets too muddy up there on grassroots plays, and access.
Right.
Even there's a paved road that actually goes through Pakashka. We have dirt roads, but it's just an issue of costing more and spending more time in the mud.
Right. Okay, Ken, do you want to walk us through today's results in a little more detail, and maybe just give us some you know, give us some interpretation of what you think they mean and, you know, what the implications are for the phase 2 that you're planning right now?
Yeah, thank you, Eric. I'd be glad to. But referring to that diagram and following up on what Steve said, the program was a bit frustrating in that we confirmed the targets concept. We found basically everything we were looking for, many of the features similar or identical to what is currently being mined at the Apumayo mine, 14 kilometers to the south. But the gold was a bit elusive. And I think I'll start with, I'll divide the area into the west and the east area.
Okay.
So to first discuss the Haopata area, this was our primary target. It was a very large resistivity anomaly corresponding with what we thought and probably still believe to be the largest diatreme on the property. So we focused early on into this Haopata area. It had a large funnel-shaped resistivity anomaly, approximately 1.2 kilometers of strike length. The drill holes targeted the inferred structural feeder based on the geophysics. And we drilled essentially the northern portion of the anomaly, the 600 meters or so of it, thinking that was the most lucrative part. We hit very thick intercepts of favorable silicic alteration, all oxide, extreme depth of oxidation down to 200 meters plus. But we did not hit the feeder, as indicated from the geophysics. And it appears that the geophysics showed somewhat of a artifact where there was an extremely resistive stratiform opaline silica layer up high, and it kind of created apparently a pseudo feeder below it. We drilled through that and we only hit stratiform alteration and not the feeder. There was only one hole that appeared to be even close to the feeder, and it was down in massive Devuggy silica at 235 meters. So our best interpretation now of what's going on in that area is, since those drill holes hit more distal, fine-grained diatreme sediments or diatreme fill sediments, and it looks like the vector would be to the south toward another diatreme. There's actually nested diatremes there. So you see the two circles intersecting in the southern portion of Haopata, and that's the area that appears to be more favorable and where the zonation from both the silica and the coarser diatreme fill sediments occurs. We just think we're in the wrong part of the system, but additional drilling is planned. We've got drill sites to the south.
Okay.
We would have drilled that had the season not expired on us while we were drilling. It was raining, and another thing I'll add, it's not just access, but there's really heavy electrical storms, so it becomes a safety issue.
Right.
So that's pretty much the story on Haopata. As in any drilling campaign I've been, the subsurface data usually gives you a vector towards something you may not have indicated or not have been indicated on the surface. And I think that's what we found at Haopata.
Okay.
So moving on to the Pachahueco and the Yucani zone on the eastern portion, I think this diagram actually shows now the story fairly well. From the Pachahueco bar to the Ayani, you can see a northeast trending zone of the red. That's a structural zone of defined by massive silica alteration and granular silica alteration. To the south of that is the Cascada, that most southerly circle there. What our drilling showed is we were interpreting two structural zones subparallel to each other, northeast trending. What the drilling showed is it's a stratiform zone that, and what we see in the outcrop there is where it reaches the surface. So it actually gave us more, rather than having two discrete structural zones, we have a large stratiform zone apparently sourced out of the Pachahueco diatreme. So there's a huge funnel-shaped structure, and as you move outward, it sort of flares outward and reaches the surface. Our gold intercepts, why don't you advance the diagram there? That's essentially the same diagram. You can see our drill holes over there at Haopata on the west side, on the left, and then the area of Chucani Pachahueco on the right, and more where the green circles were. So what I'd like to next show you is where that line of section is, and we hit the, I hope you can see the lines of the resistivity anomaly. That pretty much defined very well the silicic alteration, favorable silicic alteration. And toward the lower part of it is the gold bearing zone. It's fairly low grade, about 1/4 of a gram, but that was ore grade at the Apumayo mine because it was in granular silica that could be mined, run of mine. That zone daylights to the right-hand side of the diagram in outcrop and with similar grades. It is open to the northwest or to the left-hand side of the diagram. And I think it's still similar to an analogy of an Apumayo where the gold deposit was in the structural zone with decreasing grade as you moved out laterally in more of a stratiform nature mineralization away from the structural zone. So I don't believe we've hit the structural zone. It's further to the northwest along what I showed you or what I explained in the surface outcrop. And I think we have quite a bit of favorable ground left to explore in that area. We were vectoring in on that when we had to shut down for Christmas and the rains were increasing. We had no access to the Cascada area and our lower drill sites. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. If you have any questions.
I mean, what, you know, in this sort of a system, other than obviously the gold grade itself, is there anything that can give you you know, a better vector to areas where you would expect higher grades in phase 2? I mean, is there anything other than just putting the holes in it that's going to help you zero in here?
Well, we did find where the gold is not, so that's also a vector. The one thing I didn't mention is we had a deep core hole in the Pachahueco diatreme and beautiful breccia textures. We had breccias down to 240 meters, multi-stage, multiple stages of silicification, brecciation. That's several hundred meters to the left of those drill holes in the section. So there's a large area in between what I just defined there and these drill holes in the section. I think, well, one of the other things we're going to do is rework the geophysics. Now that we have subsurface data, all the geophysics is based on modeling of not knowing what the subsurface geology really was. So our geophysical consultant is going to fine tune the geophysics based on what we found. And I think that's going to help us a fair amount. So that with the geology and the drill hole vectors, I think will enable us to zoom in on the structural control, which I think is the key factor here now.
Well, and do you think that, does the geophysicist think they will be able to tell whether you've got this sort of masking silicified zone that's more stratiform than anything else? I mean, that seems to be what tripped things up in Haopata, that you know, you were basically getting an artifact because of that layer. Do you have any sense of whether that layer kind of all over the place, or do you think it's mainly a problem in that area?
It's mainly, well, it's only a problem that we've been able to recognize in the Haopata area.
Right.
And now it's fairly straightforward, or, you know, in hindsight, you could see why that might have been. But that silica is only in the northern part of Haopata, kind of in the distal cool part of the system, the cooler part of the system.
Okay.
So I think we'll be able to see underneath it, but that still remains to be seen. It doesn't exist in the southern part. There's no evidence for it. So it might be that the anomaly there is more straightforward.
Okay.
We didn't have that problem at Haopata, or excuse me, at Pachahueco and Chuquiani, because we were partially deeper in the system, and the geophysics, it was IP, so we actually got down below it, and the geophysicist said that extremely resistive area sort of channels the flow of electricity. So
Right.
we apparently didn't have that problem at Haopata.
Okay. And what do you think?
One other thought I wanted to add is we found everything we were looking for as far as the Apumayo analogy. And we had the chief geologist at the Apumayo mine logging our core. He had been there 7 years, and he was ecstatic with what he was seeing in the core.
Right.
So we weren't off base at all.
Yeah.
There's a gold phase that does carry gold, or there's a silica phase that does carry gold over at Chuquiani, and we just have to follow up on where that was localized, I guess, or the feeder and the source of what we're finding is a distal stratiform zone.
Okay. Again, I realize you're probably still targeting, but can you give us a kind of a rough sense of what phase 2 might look like?
Well, without a doubt, we'll follow up on the intercepts we have. And I thought we were zooming in on the favorable part of the system at the end of phase 1. So we'll just pick up where we left off. So it will be offsetting those intercepts that are on this section, moving toward the Cascada target, which was not drilled at all.
Right.
And that's where all the gold is in our surface sampling. And we had hoped Haopata would just be a blind equivalent of the same.
Right.
And the drill portion was not. It still remains to be seen whether the southern portion contains gold concentrations.
Okay.
The extreme southern portion did. In surface outcrops, we got some pretty decent gold samples, but the targeting was, those samples were outside of the main resistivity anomalies and looked smaller, so we just sort of ignored them. I think now we're going to have to reevaluate that, and it might indicate that is the gold-bearing part of the system.
Okay, and as well as Lourdes, I know you're also planning to get to work on Pacasca and probably one or two of your other projects once things dry out after the rains in a couple of months. Can you give us a sense of what the targets look like at the two other projects that you're probably going to hit first here in addition to Lourdes?
Certainly. Pacasca and Lourdes were always sort of neck and neck as far as which project we should drill first, but it was a question of permitting and the amount of exploration work done leading to drill targeting. And Lourdes was further advanced and appeared to superficially be a larger system. And the proximity to the Apumayo mine was a big plus.
Right.
But the big plus for Pacasca is we've got strong ore grade mineralization at the surface. The vuggy silica, multi-stage vuggy silica outcrops on the surface, running 3 to 5 grams gold in surface sampling.
Right.
We didn't have to work as hard to get gold at Pacasca as we did at Lourdes. They're multi-stage breccia centers. They're in the main target area. There's no granular silica. We're down deeper in the system, which is probably a big plus based on what we've seen at Lourdes.
Okay.
So we've got a fairly large breccia complex on the western portion of the system, 4 or 5 breccia centers that are outcropping, 2 with real strong gold values. We did a large IP program, and we have resistivity anomalies extending to depth, but we also identified a very large chargeability anomaly at depth that is suggestive of a porphyry copper system. And the deeper portions of the system where it's more deeply eroded have strong copper and molybdenum values. So that it's a permissible concept. We're in the permitting process on that. We'd probably be drilling it right now if it wasn't for the lengthy permitting process in Peru. Meanwhile, while we're waiting on that, we've been advancing a property to the south of Lourdes in the southern portion of the trend containing the Apumayo mine. It's called Kela. We haven't talked about it previously. It's a much larger system than Lourdes. It's located about 25 kilometers south of the most southerly Apumayo resource area, reported to have a 600,000 ounce resource. And we have 8 kilometers of strike length of intense alteration, similar to what's at Apumayo. We've completed a large soil geochemical survey, because most of the area is gentle relief, a lot of soils, so it seemed ideal for the soil geochem work. We've got a large 300 to 400 meter soil gold anomaly and a lot of multi-element geochemistry that we didn't have really at Lourdes.
Right.
So we'll be doing some geophysical work there this year to see what the subsurface signature of the outcropping silicic alteration is, but we've got diatreme breccias there, hydrothermal breccias, pretty much everything we're looking for.
And that's one of the areas we're talking about doing some trenching as well to advance. You know, it was just one of those things we put on the back burner as we were moving on to Lourdes last fall. So again, multiple projects in the works. We're just completing alteration satellite studies on it as well to help us advance that Worldview 3, to help us with some of the detailed mapping.
Okay. And just to clarify for everybody, because I mean, it's no secret, Peru doesn't have the fastest drill permitting in the world. It's a fairly involved process, but trenching specifically has been pulled out of that permitting stream, right? I mean, you can trench on these projects while the drill permitting is still ongoing.
Yeah, that's correct. It used to be part of the drill permit process, but they've now pulled it out, and you just need agreements with the surface owners. And so those are things that we're always working on and working with communities. So we have that at Pucara in hand. So that'll be the first one we'll start looking at here come after the rainy season here in our springtime.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. I mean, I think that's probably enough for now. I mean, you know, it is what it is. These are drill specs. I certainly tell subscribers often enough that the drill specs are always a double-edged sword. That's what you're playing, and that's why when you're playing this game, you want to be in a bunch of these things, not getting obsessed with one by itself, and you manage your holdings as time goes forward and drill results come in. Today's not very pretty on the stock side, but it is worth remembering that the company's got over $5 million on hand. They've got enough money to pay for all the follow-on work, and that, as Steve noted, although Lourdes is still a really good-looking target, the order of work here was really defined more by permitting than it was purely by how the targets were ranked. You know, Steve and Ken think just as highly, maybe more highly, in one or two cases of Pucara. It's just not the one that got the drill permit first. But as it turns out, they will be able to trench there in a couple of months. And one thing I will say, as an outsider, and this is me saying it, not management saying it, I got a pretty good idea where a lot of the stock is in this deal. I know a lot of the shareholders, and 2 or 3 of them prodded me pretty hard to become one myself last year which I did. And I know these shareholders are guys with a lot of experience in the sector, pretty deep pockets, and they're the kind of guys that support deals that they're involved with and shareholders in. They're not, you know, they're very supportive, but they're not blindly supportive. They are going to trade the market that they're dealing with. But I think you can see already there's been a fair amount of buying volume here in the mid to high 30s in the last couple of hours, and I think that's probably these guys. I mean, they waited to see how hard it would get hit, and they seem to be accumulating now. I'm not expecting a massive bounce or anything. You're not going to get that after this type of a day, but you know, I think this is still a very viable deal. And to the people that were waiting for a window, and I know lots of people were, because they were frustrated, and so was I, honestly, at how hard TORO came out of the gate when it listed. All you guys that wanted a window, here's your window.
Okay.
So I'll wrap it up there for now. I have to jump on another Zoom call in a couple of minutes, but thanks, guys.
Thank you, Eric.
I appreciate the fact you guys came on, and you know, you're not blowing smoke. It is what it is. We got the results we got. You guys are still quite encouraged, but you're not, you know, you're not pretending today's results are going to be better received than they were. And I appreciate the fact you guys are willing to come on and take your lumps, and we'll move on to the next drill phase.
Thank you, Eric. Yep.
Thanks, guys. Pucara Gold, TORO on the venture, PCRAF on the pinks. I'll see you all later. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Eric.
Cheers.